Welcome to FAI Farms. We're just outside Oxford in the United Kingdom, and today we are looking at mob grazing on this Nefertiti visit. We're tenant farmers on about 1,200 acres and our landlord is Oxford University. We're a cattle farm and we have two classes of cattle. We've got a suckler herd. We aim to have about 100 to 120 animals in that. Our suckler herd is a base of Solaire cattle, but in recent years we've introduced both Angus and stabiliser genetics. And we also have 150 dairy crosses, so dairy stores, animals that were born into a dairy system. The mob grazing, or adaptive multi-paddock grazing as we call it, AMP grazing, is all about mimicking how ruminants grazed across the lands before we had farms. It's about animals being on a small area for a short period of time, followed by a long rest period. With the mob grazing or AMP grazing, what we do is set up what we call cells, which are mini paddocks within a field using electric fencing. We're giving our cattle about half a hectare a day, and then they move on to the next cell every day. We won't probably come back to graze that cell for another 60 to 180 days, depending on the time of year. 6 months rest or 180 days rest feels like an incredibly long time, but what we get from that rest period is the recovery of plants and the emergence of plants that we've not seen for a long time. So we get a lot more diversity. What makes it different to other grazing systems as well, in addition to the frequent moves and the long rest period, is the amount of grass we leave behind. So we aim for a kind of graze a third, trample a third, and leave a third. And the reason we're leaving that third is to have some really active solar panels. Ultimately, grass leaves are just like solar panels. And if we graze them right down, we find that those solar panels are gone, and then we have to use things like nitrogen fertiliser to boost the growth. The trampling a third is important because that's about putting organic matter back in the soil and putting ground cover so that there isn't any bare soil exposed, so that evaporation isn't happening and we're holding on to our water. And then grazing a third, of course, it's important because the cows have to eat something. Before we started mob grazing here, I was really sceptical. In fact, I spent a lot of time telling everybody how it wouldn't work here, but ultimately I've been proven wrong. What we see is the results in our growth rates. So we're finishing animals around about 20 to 22 months, and we see great potential to improve on that. When we had a housed system, we were finishing an average of 24 months. So our productivity must be increasing and our cattle are doing better on this system. Since we started with the mob grazing, one of the big wins we've had is the fact that it's allowed us to outwinter our cows and calves, and eventually hopefully our finishing animals too. We're saving about £1.60, so I don't know, €2-ish a day per head on that outwintering cost, because the animals are outside. We roll out a bale of hay for them, but we've got no straw, no JCB, no buildings, no muck heaps. So that's been a real significant step forward in reducing our input costs. One of the added advantages of the mob grazing is the biodiversity and carbon elements that we think we're seeing. So biodiversity, we're definitely seeing more species growing in the grass, and we're seeing more birds, mammals and things happening around the farm. So we all know how important it is to start getting carbon out of the atmosphere and back in the ground where it belongs. And the tool that we use here for that is the mob grazing, because by grazing in the way that we do and leaving this longer grass, we've got deeper roots going down and they're able to draw the carbon down deeper.
Dieses Weidesystem, das sie einsetzt, das gefällt mir sehr gut, und ich finde, das ist auch sehr effektiv im Hinblick auf den Klimawandel, den wir jetzt haben, und die Trockenheit, die auch dort vor Ort zu sehen war. Wir setzen das System ebenfalls ein bei uns und denken, dass das Holistic Plant Grazing wirklich das meiste Potenzial hat für die Zukunft, weil es eben nicht nur auf eine Sache guckt, also auf die Herde oder die Milchleistung, sondern eben auch auf den Boden und auf den Pflanzenbestand. Und das ist das, was wir in Zukunft auch machen müssen, wenn wir unsere Ökosysteme vor Ort verbessern möchten.
Mob-Grazing is a really useful tool for any ruminant or grazing farmer. There's definitely more examples out there of beef and sheep mob-grazing than there are of dairy. But as a beef farm, I would say give it a go and just start dividing a few fields up and see how you get on.